I've been talking a lot about resistance this week, and resistance is what we feel anytime we're about to level up. The level up can be in anything. It can be expanding your spiritual awareness. So, for example, if you've booked into a Reiki course, in the lead up to the Reiki course, you might start to feel some resistance. It could be, you're starting a new job. It could be you're trying to start a new project, or you're building a new relationship, or whatever it might be. Resistance is felt and basically resistance is the equal and opposite effect. So if you are about to level up in some area of your life, doesn't really matter what it is, then you're going to often feel resistance to the equal and opposite effect. I was taught, through my yoga days, that when we're in alignment with our soul and with our higher self, then everything just kind of flows. And to an extent that is true, but it's not the whole picture. And I think that is kind of misconstrued a lot. So resistance is also felt as well, because nothing is only light or dark. Everything has an equal and opposite effect. We live in a dualistic world. At the highest level, everything is unconditional love, but like what we experience in this 3D world is definitely light and dark. It's black and white, it's yin and yang. So resistance is the dark. It's the opposite effect. Sometimes we can think of it as higher self versus ego. So our higher self is the highest aspect of us that is guiding us on our highest path for our soul's highest good. Our ego is trying to keep us safe. In effect, it's essentially handbraking a lot of our progress, because our ego just wants to be in the familiar. It wants us to stay in its comfort zone. It wants to be right, and it wants to be in control. And it basically is protecting us at all moments of the day. The problem is that protecting us is not always in our best interests, because if we're trying to expand and to grow outside of our comfort zone, our ego perceives that as a potential threat and will then basically work against us to stop us from expanding into the unknown, into the arena that it doesn't really know how to control. So for example, when you're going to the gym, if I went to the gym and lifted 1 kilo weights day in, day out, I'm not really going to get any stronger. It's my comfort zone. But if I go and try and lift a 30 kilo weight, for example, it's going to be much heavier. I have to really psych myself up for it. I've got to really put some energy and sweat and oomph and grunt into it. And then eventually I will, if I keep doing that over a period of time, I will definitely get stronger. But when that happens, after I lift a heavier weight, for example, there is a period of rest. So we need to let the muscles recover, we need to let everything heal, and then, it takes a bit of effort and energy again to lift that same weight again. But over time, we get stronger and stronger, and our comfort zone, or our zone of tolerance, basically increases. The biggest question I get is, what's the difference between fear and resistance? Or how do I know if I'm in alignment and I'm still getting resistance? How do I know if it's just not meant to be, or if it is actually resistance? And it's a really good question. I remember I started a business once. I've done so many things in my life, and I started a business actually in real estate. And 6 months was all it lasted, but at the same time I had also started Reikiing, and I kind of was doing them both at the same time, and I wasn't really sure which direction I wanted to go in. My thinking was, well, I probably earn more money in real estate, but Reiki was kind of what I loved. And it just got to the point where I was like, nothing was really flowing in real estate, but it just was a feeling. It was a feeling in my heart, and it was a feeling in my gut that it wasn't the right thing. So then I opted for Reiki. And to be honest, it was a bit of an ego blow to close down that business. I will always remember the phone call I made to my accountant to close down the corporate trust and all the rest of it. And it was like, I just set all of that up 6 months ago and invested so much money, and then it wasn't the right thing. So, you move on. Lesson learned. But when I started following Reiki, yes, clients really did start to flow in quite quickly. But on the flip side, I was getting so much resistance. I was threatened by other Reiki healers. I had my posters torn down around Elwood or around sort of my area. I had psychic attacks. I had all sorts of spiritual and energetic resistance. I had all sorts of things. Like, it was insane, actually, the amount of resistance I had. Even my website, I built a website and then it didn't go to plan. It was really difficult. The long story short is I had to let my designer and the website builder go and start all over again. So that cost me like upwards of $10,000 to start all over again, just down the drain. Oh, there was so much resistance. But the funny thing was, I knew I had this deep knowing. Like anytime I would do Reiki, it was a soul knowing. It was a heart and gut alignment of like, yes, like this is what I'm meant to be doing. And my God, I've tried so many things in my life. I've been in corporate HR, I've taught yoga, I've tried my little hand at real estate, I've done so many courses in so many things, only which a few of them are on my website. And if you've had a look, there's quite a lot already. But I've just never found, like my thing. And when I look back, it's like everything has obviously led me to the point where I am today. Even the things I studied at university, psychology and HR, that's absolutely put me in a great position for running my business now. At the time, corporate, I didn't like it. I was like, oh, that was 4 years of study like down the track. And when I was teaching yoga, I was like, why did I even do that course? But now it's funny, in hindsight, we always look back and everything makes sense. Everything is like a domino effect leading us to this moment now. And what we're doing now is leading us to the next moment in the future. I think that resistance is not a bad thing. Resistance is a positive thing, but we need to get out of the idea that resistance is fear-based, because yes, sometimes it is from the ego, which is fear-based, but it's not always the case. And the way to determine whether it's ego and fear-based or whether it is just resistance in accordance to the amount of energy that we're expending in leveling up and that we are still in alignment, I think is dropping into your heart. That's the only way, because our mind, this is where the ego sits. It's like the negative self-talk. It's like the part of our brain. It's like, oh, it's too cold to go to the gym. Oh, you just need a bit of extra rest. And oh, that's too hard. That's too much energy. Oh, you're feeling a bit tired. All the excuses, all the procrastination, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, the depression and the overthinking, anxiety, like that all comes from the mind. But when we drop into our heart and our belly and we're in alignment with what we know is our purpose and what we know we're meant to be doing in this lifetime or in this world, what our contribution is to community, then it's like, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And I had that time and time again. I had this knowing, this deep knowing when I was doing Reiki, this is what I was meant to be doing. And because of that, I was able to push through the resistance. And I remember thinking to myself so many times, my God, if I didn't have this knowing, then I would be out of here. Like, this is way too hard. Like, it actually takes a lot to be a Reiki healer. And it's amazing and I love it and it's where I'm meant to be. And because I have that knowing, I'm able to push through the resistance. I was able to deal with the challenges as they come up. And I think that's the key, is just having that deep knowing. If it was like my real estate business and I was like, oh, I just didn't want to go and see these houses. I didn't want to go and talk to these people. I had so much fear. I remember driving up to Bendigo and sitting in my car, and I had a meeting with a developer and I was like, oh, it doesn't feel right. And I literally cancelled and turned around and drove home. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, that wasn't just resistance. That was the universe telling me, wrong way, go back. And I think that with the real estate, I actually had a knowing that it wasn't for me. It wasn't my truth. It wasn't in alignment with what I was meant to be doing and what I was meant to be contributing to the world. So in order to find out whether that's just fear or whether that's, like resistance in alignment to what you're actually meant to be doing, you've got to drop into your heart. You have to have this soul knowing and this soul feeling. But if it's just thoughts in your mind, if it's just like da 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 da, then most of the time that's just your ego. And yeah, like that's not very helpful, right? So I think to be able to find true alignment and to be able to go through it and deal with the thoughts in your mind, to deal with the resistance that we might be feeling, is to have that knowing, to have that soul knowing that I'm on the right track and this is where I'm meant to be. It's hard. This is not easy stuff. And I think we have got to listen to our intuition as well, because intuition is always going to guide us. And at the end of the day, do you know what? Like, even if you succumb to resistance, even if you're like, oh yeah, you're right, it's too hard, it's too cold, I don't want to go to the gym today, like, you will hit a point where the universe will step in and be like, come on, like, wake up call. You'll hit a wake up call. The universe will give you a sign, a big sign that you cannot miss, to put you on your path anyway. So you don't have to worry. I think sometimes we often, think about this too much and we overanalyze, or we worry, and that causes us to stress and then get more into our ego mind and forget about our intuition and forget about our dropping into our heart and forget about our deep knowing. Don't worry, like, the universe, everything has a way of working out. Your life is always working out for your highest good. So it's not linear. We need to go on these roundabout ways, and we need to go the wrong way and turn back, and we need to go and experiment there and kind of get put back on our path. Like all of that stuff, it seems like it's the wrong thing, but in actual fact, we're learning from all those experiences. I've learned so much from all of my failed businesses, all the money that I've lost over the years. I've learned so much from all those experiences, and I honestly don't regret any of them. If you need support and you're just not sure and you're like, oh my God, this is resonating, reach out, book in for a Reiki and coaching session, because I've been through my own experience. I have the tools and strategies in my back pocket I can share with you, and I can teach you a little bit more about how to open up your intuition, how to drop into your heart, and how to guide yourself forward on the path that is meant for you. If you have questions, you can DM me, email me. Otherwise, I hope to see you soon.